All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and I pray everybody is doing well. Let us go ahead and get ready to get started. All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. You don't know already. We're there. This is before Marcus met Amy, number one, that is. So, my name is Amuna, and I want to welcome you to the conversation. And shout out to those of us who find history important. You understand? Shout out to those of us who find history important. Okay, I have said it and I continue to say that the value of history goes just beyond the hype. You know what I mean? Shout out to everybody who tuned into the videos nonetheless. But you could definitely tell, welcome, the difference between wanting to know history and kind of wanting to know hype. You know what I mean? And hopefully we will get to substance over hype. Hopefully we'll get there. But in the meantime, and between time, because I did in step the Bob Marley conversation before this one, which many people were drawn to it. Again, I understand for different reasons. Now we're going into something that's a little bit further in history, but is also something that or someone or a time period that was referred to by those who later came in the faith of Rastafari, in reggae music, in Caribbean culture, in worldwide culture, right? So prayerfully we give it and him as much. Yeah, we can't stop the edification. Greetings and welcome. We haven't ever edified, right? And we got to do it when it's time. We got to make haste while the sun shines. You understand? So I wanted to talk about, right now we're up to the part where Garvey comes back from overseas. We already read how he tried to, remix, icky remix the whole conversation about how he got back over. And I said I was going to go into the minute he got here, he started stirring up trouble, right? But I said, let me go into Amy before I revisit Mr. Garvey's antics, because, okay, so before he meets Amy, and I didn't get a chance to put up the screen saver, but it'll be all right. I'll make it for next time. This book I had to search around, and I finally got it. I could tell you guys where I got it in the description below, because it's not on Amazon, sold out. All the traditional places is sold out. So I had to go to another bookstore to get it, but we got it, okay? And we're going to read it, and then I have some supporting evidence as usual, okay? So we're coming from Amy Garvey, Ashwood Garvey, written by Tony Martin. So we're going to read a little bit about her, because when Marcus meets her, she's not, he didn't. Sometimes people like to think that when a man wants a woman, then he imbues her with everything she knows and everything she will become. He was attracted to her because of what she already was. And I think that's important to note, right? Because as we read Amy number 2's book, she skipped over. She hovercraft. She jettisoned over Amy number 1 as if her contribution really didn't mean anything. Shout out to everybody who has just joined us in the chat. So we're going to read from the chapter called The Beginning. Okay? And then I have some stuff for us to follow along. I was born in the eastern tip of Jamaica, in the most ancient and popular town of Port Antonio, in the parish of Portland, in the year 1895, on the 18th day of January. So wrote Amy Ashwood Garvey in an autobiographical fragment surviving among her private papers. That's why I say write that book, publish that book. Because she was in the outline phase. We had someone in the audience yesterday said they were starting, but she didn't, in this case, she didn't publish it. Amy didn't publish it, right? Even this seems innocuous seemingly innocuous statement is not without its problems. However, for her passport variously gave her date of birth, both January 18th, 1895 and January 10th, 1897. The ship's manifest for her arrival in New York in 1918 gave her age 20, suggesting a possible 1898. And in a 1946 interview with the Ashanti pioneer, she offered a birth date of 1899. When asked her age by a New York Times reporter in 1968, she indicated that her age was her business. Amy, the kind of feisty. So you don't know already. We'd have to go look for Amy passport. We'd have to go look for Amy birth certificate, right? So we're going to share that right now so we could clear up that first part of this conversation according to the birth certificate. And then we will move on, yeah? Because I did see varying dates and varying the 10th and the 18th. I saw that too. So, I women putty. Sitia. Okay, so let me see if you guys can see. Boom, you can see. Great. So according to the birth certificate, you already know if you do this for your own family, it's on familysearch.org, and there's a lot of stuff we could pick up off the birth certificate. So according to the date of birth, it says the 18th of January. Therefore, that first date of 1895 is and would be the correct date. 1895, the 18th of January, right? And then we see, we see Portland. We see signed by Michael Ashwood, who is her father, that we're going to read in a second. It's female, born the 18th of January, 1895. Michael Ashwood, Portland, Port Antonio, Portland. And then it gives her mother's name, which is Margina, and there's another place that calls it Mardiana, again, formerly known as, some places it says Thompson, and in some places it says what it's trying to say here, like Chopin or something like that. But we're going to clear that up. And then it has Baker as the father's profession. So see, we have Michael Ashwood signed and the resident informant. And then we have when she was registered, which would have been February of 1895. And her name is Amy Adina Ashwood. See that? So to clear that up, because that's important, because when people say when Marcus met her, it's important for many reasons, but when Marcus met her, she was blah, blah, blah years old and all this other stuff. So according to the birth certificate, she is, greetings and welcome to those who just joined us. She is born in 1895 on January the 18th. So we have that. All right. And then I should have showed the parents' marriage certificate first, but nonetheless. So her parents were married, at the time of her birth, according to their marriage certificate. And I'm going to share that as well. All of this stuff is available. People say marriage is just a piece of paper. Well, if we ain't had these pieces of paper, boy, we couldn't imagine if they weren't married on paper. A lot of these stories we couldn't put together. So I give thanks to those who thought it was a little bit more than a piece of paper and gave their children and their descendants something to work with, right? Because I've had many discussions, facilitated conversations of people pretending that marriage was just a piece of paper. But we'll continue. So this is the marriage certificate. And we see Michael Ashwood and Margina, or Maud, at one point they call her, and here her name is Thompson. So there's a little back and forth with the way in which they're writing the name, but they were married in 1891. So 4 years before she's born, her parents are said to be married. Wait, hold on. This is somebody's picture I did for a school assignment. Hold on one second. Let me put the thing back up. I'm like, whoa, what picture is that? I wanted to talk about, actually, that picture reminds me, because I want to talk about diabetes. I did an assignment about diabetes, and that was the sister who I interviewed. And her story is very compelling because she developed diabetes at 25 when she was a nurse, and her eyes look like that because she actually today is legally blind and part amputee because of her diabetes and the way it progressed. And so I wanted to talk about diabetes because it came out in recent times, about the passing of Peter Morgan, that he had a stroke, according to what it was reported, and he had complications related to diabetes. And type 2 diabetes is a preventable disease. It's a lifestyle disease that is preventable. And I kind of wanted to come on here and talk about that. So that was interested that actually popped up. It just reminded me that I need to speak about that, because beyond just learning where we're coming from, I think it's very important to take care of us in the now, take care of ourselves and our family. There's a lot of things that we culturally have adopted, whether it be our food, our habits, our customs, our way in which of doing things, that cause us to have to get the same diseases that those who came before us got. One of the things that we saw in the forefront within the Rasta community early on, not now, but early on the conversation, I shouldn't say not now, for some, it was more stringent in the beginning times, is your liberty, how you ate, right? And so as time went on and time progressed, some Rastas began to be laxed in certain areas, right? And so I kind of wanted to talk about that, and that just reminded me. So let me get back to what I was doing here. My apologies. Like, I'm gonna how much thing you think? Yeah, that part I've been taking a lot of courses in that area in diabetes prevention and type 2 diabetes, because as usual, melanated people, black people, are number one in many categories, and that's one of them. Complications as it relates to diabetes, and more loss of eyesight, loss of limbs, things of that nature. So very important. It's very important. But let me get back to this topic here. What's this here? Okay, so they were married. He's a bachelor. It says like 27 here, and she's 23. And they have the father as Emmanuel Ashwood, which is interesting. They have this connected to say that it's them, but I want to get back to that one. So I'll stop right there. This is what I was able to pull up. I'm going to cross-reference that one more time again. So let me go in to finish reading here. Abini says, absolutely, Amuna, and some of the customs might taste nice, but it is not taste for us. 5 fats, carbs. Yes. Thank you for highlighting. Yeah, it's prevalent in the community. It's something that is a lifestyle disease. Too much starch, too much sugar. You're inundating your pancreas and your body. Your body's not able to produce enough insulin to lower it in time, and so then you get sugar in your blood, right? And then there's not enough activity, not enough movement, and so this is definitely something. Even though we grew accustomed to nyamin the one baga, everything, dumpling, banana, dashing, cassava, you're eating all of these things, but that's a lot of starch on starch on starch on starch on starch, which all breaks down to sugar on sugar on sugar on sugar. But let me get back to Amy Ashwood. And I want to thank that sister too, because she's very open in her journey of sharing what actually happened to her and what could happen if you neglect until the latter part. Welcome to those who have joined us. And then, it goes beyond what can be repaired. So there is a part that can be repaired, the pre-diabetic phase of diabetes, where you become insulin resistant and your body is telling you, hey, slow down, chill out. And at that time, you can turn the card around. Right? But you just have to know the signs and know what's going on. But let me continue for those who just joined. So let me come to the top, and then I'm going to go again. That was a little public service announcement. I was born in the eastern tip of Jamaica in the most ancient and popular town of Port Antonio in the parish of Portland in the year 1895. And we just confirmed based on her birth certificate that she was born on the 18th of January, 1895. Okay. Unlike Marcus Garvey, her fellow countryman and race leader extraordinaire, he was destined to enter her life dramatically with a mere 17 years of 1897. So we just read she was 19, basically. She wasn't 17 because she was born in 1895 and they met in 1914. So she was actually 19. Amy Ashwood was born into a highly respectable, I'm putting quotes because they put quotes, middle-class family. Her parents were already engaged in the baking business by the time Amy was born. The year of her birth, she recalled, was the best business year up to that point. Amy's mother, Maudrina or Maud Ashwood, Nee Thompson, was born in Jamaica of a Haitian mother, Zélie Cantrell, a mulatto. And that's an interesting history of Haiti, Saint Domingue, the French mixing a lot with the African population, and then you get a whole subset of mulattoes who then, leave the island and come to places like Louisiana. But that's another story. Amy said that Zélie had fled to Jamaica with her sister during one of Haiti's frequent wars between blacks and mulattoes. Amy's father, Michael Delbert Ashwood, an energetic businessman, acted as an undertaker for the indigent under a government contract in addition to his work as a baker. What an interesting, those are two interesting. That he's like, yeah, man, at daytime I bake, but you see, at night, he's an undertaker. That's interesting. Okay, Mr. Delbert. Mr. Ashwood's grandfather, still alive during Amy's childhood, was born in Africa, grandmother, and shipped in captivity to Jamaica. So to recap, she was born in 1895. Her parents were middle class, considered at that time. Her father is a baker. Her mother is Haitian mulatto who comes over from Haiti, to flee Haiti, she and her mother. And her father is a baker and an undertaker. He moonlights as an undertaker. And her grandmother, which is Michael's mother, was still alive, and she was born in Africa and shipped in captivity to Jamaica. Interesting stuff. Kevin says, as you mentioned the value of food and diet, I recommend you check out Dr. Baxter Montgomery, based out in Texas. He's the real deal when it comes to eating. Interesting. I'll check him out. It's definitely something on the top of my list. One of the first things I started talking about on YouTube was health, and then there was a whole wave of health gurus. I'm not saying that I'm a guru. I'm just saying that we need to be conscious. You understand? Because some of this stuff we are doing it to ourselves. Mr. Ashwood immigrated with his family to Panama shortly after Amy's birth, because there were a lot of Caribbean people going to Panama because of the Panama Canal digging. Caribbean workers were at that time flocking to Panama Canal in their thousands in search of employment. And with the workers in their great exodus came their clergymen, teachers, businessmen, and other support groups to facilitate the transplanting of these Caribbean communities. And there are still a community. There's actually a documentary that shows that the Spanish indigenous have not, even to this day, wholly accepted the migrants. So you will have smaller communities to this day of people who came from Jamaica and Barbados, which was the biggest population from Caribbean, going to Panama, who kind of still have a accent, a different dialect, and still culture that they brought from their homeland. If I find that documentary again, I'll put it in the box below. But let's continue. It says here, so Amy basically, after she's born, her father and her family migrate to Panama. It says here, Mr. Ashwood may have engaged in the baking business in Panama, but as far as Amy can remember, he was running a printery, interesting, at the corner of 6th Street and Amador Guerrero Avenue in Cologne in 1900. So Amy is saying that there are some similarities, basically, between what she now experiences and what Marcus is coming with. The energy that Marcus is coming with wouldn't have been foreign to her. So she's saying she remembers her dad being a printer as well. About 1904, so she would be 9, Maud Ashwood brought her son Michael and Amy back to Jamaica for school. So Maud said, "Why may I go in? No, may I go on?" In due course, Amy enrolled at Westwood High School, a private institution for girls. Westwood was founded in 1882 as a school for girls of all races. So Amy wasn't on, Amy did conscious, Amy did aware, okay? At the time, wrote a historian of the school, girls of dark complexion were not accepted at secondary schools. And we went over this a little bit of the colorism conversation. I never me write it. I never the author write it. Him say at the time, it was written that dark girls of dark complexion were not accepted to secondary schools. In Jamaica, the school's founder, Baptist minister Reverend William Menzies Webb, conceived Westwood as a challenge to the racist status quo. That's something interesting. By her Westwood years, according to Amy's later recollection, she was already beginning to manifest the social consciousness and rebellion against the values of her class, which were to characterize much of her life. Her mother, she said, tried to discourage her from playing with less affluent children in the neighborhood. Seriously, Maud? But again, Maud is, according to the narrative, she would have been of mixed ancestry. So basically, at this point, what I'm getting is that Amy's like fireburn. You know what I mean? Welcome to the conversation for everyone who has just joined us. It says here, Amy, however, thought nothing of stealing bread, but Amy, cakes and sugar from her mother's kitchen and redistributing them to her playmates. What in the world? Amy, yeah, thief bread. Robin from Peter for PayPal. Robin Hood? You could have asked Amy. I mean, I guess your mom said good night and good day to everyone who's just joined us. I guess she felt like she needed to steal it. I don't know. Nevertheless, it was at Westwood with its many British teachers that young Amy consolidated her early consciousness. That consciousness did not initially include any notion of race. Realization of the reality of her African descent came to Amy quite suddenly in her 12th year. The school, she recalled, was collecting money for the Dorcas Society, a missionary establishment. While discussing the purpose of the fund, Miss Georgiana Webb, wife of Westwood's founder, informed Amy that your people in Africa still languish in heathen darkness. So the European teacher, I'm assuming, I have to confirm that, is telling her, hey, your people, and she must have been like, your people? What kind of talk that? In Africa still languish in heathen darkness. The fact that she was African came as news to Amy. Amy was like, what? Me African? For no one had taken the trouble to explain this to her before. Imagine, at 12 years old, you just finding out. She must have communicated her surprise to Miss Webb, for the good lady proceeded to tell her about slavery and related matters. And this is even up to today. Many times articles come in the news around February about teachers either uncomfortably approaching slavery, unsure on how to approach slavery, being inappropriate with the way in which they're conveying slavery to elementary. And then there's this big outcry from the community. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You cannot educate your own children and your own communities, right? Whatever side of the spectrum you fall on, and then get upset when the people are going to present it in the way that they see fit. You can't have it both ways. You got to pick a side. So the children are not educated. And then, I don't like the way you're educating them. Every time I see it come up, I'm like, whose responsibility is it? You guys tell me, whose responsibility is it to educate the children about where they're coming from? Where am I? So for those who just joined us, I'm reading from Amy Ashwood, Pan-Africanist, Feminist, and Mrs. Marcus Garvey #1, or A Tale of Two Amys, long title by Tony Martin. It took some searching, but we get the book. We get the book. Let's see here. I wanted this book because in most places they just speak about her in a blurb, and some places they don't speak about her at all, right? And so we needed her because she is the beginning. She's there at the very beginning. All right. So we found out when she was born. We found out who her parents were. She has a brother also named Michael, and her father's named Michael. She's schooled, so she's educated, and we're going to continue. Well, if you're coming, Trish says it's strange that Amy was not aware of African and of slavery since slavery was finally abolished in 1838. She's born like 95. So she's born how many years later? Over 50 years later. And if the curriculum within the school, if the curriculum is not educating her, which in many cases, curriculums, even to this day, are not educating the children efficiently, I could see how, the fullness understanding of what actually happened would go missing, or so. But let's see here. It says here, still shocked by these revelations, Amy dashed off to two frantic letters to her father in Panama, because remember, her mother brought them back so that they can go to school. Who was she? Where did she come from? What was Africa to her? With these and other urgent questions, she plied her father, who, upon receipt of her second letter, was sufficiently disturbed to pay a hurried visit home. He's like, "Oh, Amy, let me go and see what happened." The best way to answer Amy's questions, her father thought, would be to take her to visit Granny Dabas, her 93-year-old great-grandmother. So the question is, why hadn't she met Granny Dabas before? Where did Granny live? And why hasn't she come into contact with her before this time, or get the story before this time? Granny, this is why it's important to sit the children down, sit the people down, and talk to them. Granny Dabas told Amy that she had been born in Jaban, in West African nation of Ashanti. While still a girl, she had been kidnapped, enslaved, transported across the ocean, and sold to a white slave owner in Jamaica. So if this is the year, what year was Sewina? Hold on. Amy is 12, and Amy is born in 1895, right? So this is 1907, okay? And so grandma is saying she's 93 years old. So at the turn of the century, early 1800s is when Granny would have been captured. It says here, while still a girl, she had been kidnapped, enslaved, transported across the ocean, and sold to a white slave owner in Jamaica. Because what happens is that early 1800s, and I don't want to misquote, it's like I'm gonna get you the exact date, but the early 1800s, the British was like, oh no, I'm having a moral compass change, and I think it's like 1808, we should no longer do the slave trade. So they abolished the slave trade, right? That you can no longer bring in people due to the abolitionists. I just want to double check. Is it that late? Is it 1833? Okay, no. Well, I don't know why I'm thinking it's earlier. They have it as 1833. I have to double check. But there was a lot of kickback. I'm remembering early 1800s, but I don't want to get off track. So there was a lot of kickback, and it was like, that's what I thought. It was passed by Earl Grey Reforming Administration and expanded the jurisdiction of the Slave Trade Act of 1807 and made the purchase of ownership of slaves illegal within the British Empire, with the exception of territories in possession of East Indian Company. I thought it was the early 1800s. Right. So there's a Slave Trade Act in 1807, an act for the abolition of the slave trade. Let me show that. I know I wasn't bugging. I was like, what? 1833? That's crazy. But okay, here we are. Why I think her story is important, because people weren't listening. Even after they abolished it, then there was an illegal slave trade. It's like abolishing alcohol during prohibition, and then all of a sudden you have speakeasies, right? So this is the act I was talking about. This is 1807, the Slave Trade Act, 1807, officially an act for the abolition of the slave trade, was an act of the Parliament of the United Kingdom prohibiting the slave trade in the British Empire, which would have constituted Jamaica as well, right? So this is why I say a broader scope in history is important, because now if Granny is saying, and I'm gonna go back to my reading, but I want to get the exact year. Hold on. How is everybody doing today? How is everybody doing? Hold on 1 second. Okay. So, right. And then Granny said she 93 years ago. Right. So they stole Granny after the abolition because this brings me to 1814. Let me double check again. 1895 plus 12 minus 93. Yeah, so they were still doing it. So when they were like, you know what, no more, no more, no more, no more getting slaves and sending them across, they had people on both sides now running illegal voyages when it was been illegal, because how are you stealing people, but illegal voyages to bring bodies in. There was a, I'm not going off, you guys, I promise you. There was a nah, I'm not gonna go off. I'm not gonna go off. We'll talk about that another time. So yeah, let me continue. So Granny was captured after the time where it was made illegal, but they did it anyway. They did it anyway. So let's continue here. So Granny was Ashanti. While still a girl, she had been kidnapped. Okay, I said that. The family names Dabas, the old lady explained, signified strong or iron will. Her first name in Africa had been Boa Ima. And even after 70 or 80 odd years of exile in a strange land, she manifested a fierce pride in her ancestry and in the marital prowess of her Ashanti people. Sorry. Amy's recollections here are again problematic, for if Grammy Dabas was 93 and he has 1909 when Amy was 12, according to the 1897 birthday. So he keeps referencing the wrong birthday, but it's okay. We're going to rock. Then she was 1816. I got 1814 after the legal slave trade to Jamaica ended. That's why I just went there, because the reality is they were still doing it. Perhaps she was one of those later brought in illegally, or maybe one of the recaptives or liberated Africans seized from foreign slave ships by the British Navy. So he's now, because you know a little bit of the history, you're like, well, how did that happen? I'm of the understanding that they were still doing it. But okay. It says, or maybe Amy's dates are simply wrong. I think she's okay. When Amy visited Ashanti much later, she was told her granny Dabas was captured after an intra-Ashanti war of 1824 in some accounts. The 1834 date would put Dabas at 80 at the time of her capture. She would then have been probably arrived in Jamaica during the semi-slavery apprenticeship period preceding full emancipation. So he's trying to make sense of the dates. Nonetheless, Granny is saying she came from the continent. For decades later in Ashanti, Amy was nevertheless able to verify the essential elements of Granny Dabas' story in a profoundly moving experience. Sorry, so she goes there. She's not just like, oh, my granny did say. She wanted to know for herself. Many years after her audience with Granny Dabas, Amy wrote of her immediate reaction to her great grandmother's story, a fiery feeling engulfed me, which threatened to choke and smother her, and I suddenly knew the meaning of race and felt the power of blood. From this time onwards, I nursed a passion in my heart for Africa. So before she meets Garvey, before any of that, this is the making of, she stirred up in her spirit. This is the making of Amy Ashwood, okay? So she's already on fire. Okay. Meantime, Garvey's on the ship. No, he ain't on the ship yet, but he's starting to heat up himself. I dreamt dreams and built castles in the air. She returned to Westwood, no longer confused, but full of pride in her heritage. In her heritage. Okay, no, I was just reading the footnotes here. The man who was gonna first write Amy's autobiography was Lionel M. Yard, the first Amy tells biography of Amy Garwood, later published biography of Amy Ashwood Garvey. So where is that one? Anywho, so there we have it. the beginnings of Amy Ashwood. Okay, she's already stirring up. So I took the liberty, besides the birth certificates, to say, okay, she's 19, we say, when she meets Garvey. How does she meet him? Later, we're going to find out that Garvey sees her speak. So I was looking through the Gleaner, one of my favorite things to peruse here, and I found something interesting of which I'm going to share with you. Of which I share with you. Okay, let me see if this is the right one here. And then we're going to get to when they actually meet. So there was an organization called the Literary Army and Patriotic League. I'm going to pull this up because this is curious, the timing of everything. So this was already a league. Let me, got too many tabs up. Peoples, let me close some of this. Boom, Slave Trade Act. Boom, close that, close that. Close this. All right, boom, we're good now. Steven says, oh, wow. He says that he's type 2 diabetic and he does push up 30 minutes after eating. This exercise helps to reduce the rise of blood pressure. And that's correct. You know, exercising, that's that afternoon walk or that evening walk after dinner, exercising does help to lower blood sugar. So definitely people used to do that back in the days, go for a walk after they've had a big meal, and it has its purposes, right? So definitely, even if you need to walk in your house, walk in place, put on a YouTube video, put on some music and just walk around, that also helps to the body to digest the food that we just ate. So let me share here this Gleaner. Oh, what year the Gleaner is? June 1st. All right, June 1st. Okay. This is an example, and then we're going to get to Amy Garvey because I thought this was interesting in the whole conversation. The Literary Army and Patriotic League. So this is 1914. Why is it important? Because at this time, June, Garvey is still stuck in Europe trying to get his way back. But 1914 is the year that they're going to eventually mate and the year that the UNIA is started. So plan for development of talent of young Jamaica. Remember, she's already, she when 7 years earlier, she learns who she is. She's already becoming conscious. She's already becoming awake, right? And so this is an organization, and I'm going to read their objectives here because this one is a little clearer. They encourage the love of literary art and nature. They want to develop the talent of young Jamaica, to inspire a true spirit of patriotism, love of our island and our empire, to encourage the practice of kindness to others and humane, I can't see what that say, treatment of all something and other creatures. I can't see what that say. So you see that they have rules. It was an actual society, right? But this one is a little clear. This is why I showed this one. And then what they do is they tell you the rules, and the editor is a woman, right? The editress. And then they welcome new members. They tell you whatever is, they promise that once a week, as long as they're able, that they will be open to, what is this? Do at least one thing to make someone happy. Well, that's interesting. You don't have to be a part of this society. Once a week, do something that is for someone else, something altruistic, something that's outside of yourself. Because a lot of people today, we don't feel fulfilled with all of the things and the things and the things because it's all self-interest, right? It's whatever's going to make the person happy. But if we come outside of ourselves and do something that's going to give and bring joy to somebody else, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be something simple. I think that's something that's applicable, even though this is 100 years later, because this is 1914, it's something that we can definitely apply within our own lives. And then they have them to make a pledge, right? And then they welcome new members. And then they have talks with the members. And then they have certain call to action every week, right? So, and this gets 3 columns. So they're in league with the Gleaner, we have to remember this when we're looking at this conversation. They're in leagues 1, 2, 3 columns. So they're in league with the green. To get 3 columns and it's in more than 1 week, then you already know. Okay. So this was what was going on at the time that young Amy was coming up, right? So let me go to her. I just wanted to show you that one because that one is a little clearer than the one I have. So on July, oh wow, your niece went to Westwood High in Trelawney. Cool, that is so cool. Buana says apple cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon with a cup of water. Yes, I've heard that one as well. They say apple cider vinegar. Now we weaving in. I like this. Apple cider vinegar is also known to be a diuretic, making you, passing out certain nutrients. So yes, it does help, but you also lime as well. You just have to also be mindful about what is going on with your body and how it works for you, right? Which happened then on? Oh, July. Yeah, I know I got a little bit of, wait a minute, let me not jump down here. So this is July the 7th. So let's go to July the 7th. July the 7th. We bringing out facts, okay? So the same, similar to what I just showed, is the Literacy Army and Patriotic. Sorry, why I keep saying literacy? Literary Army and Patriotic League. But this one is a little smudged because sometimes when they scan it in, it's not always the best. But why this one is important is because remember that whole announcement, talented amateurs, a member's account, right? And if we scroll down nice and slow, they have the same thing. They have everything, rules of the league, what the league is about. If we come all the way down, looky, and male and female join this league. If we come all the way down, look who's a new member on July the 7th. Miss Amy Ashwood. When I saw the date, I'm like, yo, this is curious. And I'm going to tell you why in 2 seconds. I think for real, they were destined to meet. And I'm going to tell you why. Her number, she gets a number, 2257. Miss Amy Ashwood joins and is officially welcomed as a new member. So one would say, well, where was Garvey? And I'll make it big right there. Okay. Where was Garvey during this time? Because remember, he was still trying to make his way over on the Ocean Blue. Okay. And it took him 3 weeks to arrive. 3 weeks to arrive. Because sometimes we don't know how we come into contact with other people. You're just at the right place at the right time, I guess some would say. Some would say. Oh, I forgot to say. When you guys contributed to the channel the other day, I showed you my Amy book that came in. And then I used the rest of it to get number 1, volume number 1. We officially digging into the archives of Marcus Garvey. Volume number 1. I tell you, these volumes are huge. Okay. We were looking at it online and I got the volume in yesterday. So I'm going to read what we already saw, right? I'm going to read what we already saw, the arrival of Marcus Garvey. So this, big up to everybody, big up to you guys, big up to everybody who contributed, who see the vision and know, so we have to invest in our education so that we can know, right, to educate the next community that's coming behind us, the children that's coming behind us, the young adults that's coming behind us, right? To give them the information to say, listen, this is what has been done, this is what we are doing, and this is how far you can go. We can't expect that university is going to give you the fullness of it, or the information is there, right? So if it's there, we're going to get it. So this article right here out of the Gleaner is what I'm going to read from. But shortly, it was printed in the Gleaner, July the 11th, 1914. And it says, Mr. Marcus Garvey, who left Jamaica last year for the purpose of taking the BA degree at the University of London, returned to the island on Thursday. So the author looked it up, and Thursday was July the 8th. And he made a correction that he actually left in Jamaica the 1912. So what's curious right here? What is curious is her announcement is made before he arrives. The 11th, it is announced in the paper that Garvey has come back. And again, Garvey is the one who probably put the press release out. And it says it over here that Garvey arrived on a third-class ship, SS Trent, right? And it says that it stopped in Barbados, Trinidad, and Panama before arriving in Jamaica on the 7th of July. So actually, he arrives here, he's saying on the 7th. Which one is it, brother, the 7th or the 8th? The 7th or the 8th. So she had joined the organization that he would later encounter at the same time he was coming back to the island. Coincidence? So we saw that she joined the organization same time, right? One more thing. I think I have two more things. And then I'll open the mic. Because we need to learn a little bit about Miss Amy. Put a little bit of respect on her name. Just a little bit. Put some respect on her name. So on July the 30th, remember, there are males and females who are joining this organization. And according to the records, Garvey sees her at a speech. We're going to read that later, but I kind of want to preface it by what speech did he see her at, right? So let me go ahead and share this again. All right. So there was a debate. Wait, let me go up here. So now that she's joined the organization earlier that month, this is Thursday, July the 30th, 1914, right? So she joined the organization like 3 weeks earlier. And now 3 weeks later, she's ready to go. She's ready to go. So there's a debate. And it says, tonight's debate. Could this be the debate that he sees? Because he says 2 weeks, 5 days after he comes, he starts the organization, and then he has his meeting like 2 weeks later, right? Tonight's debate is capital punishment justifiable. What is also curious, who remembers what we saw about, and this might have gotten Garvey's attention. This is why this stuff all comes together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. What did we see about Garvey's pastor, the Playmate's dad, who was the preacher of the Wesleyan Church? What did he put out in the paper? This is before Garvey left, when he was younger. What did he put out? Is capital punishment, what was the question? He asked for an essay about capital punishment and should it be meted out, right, to children or whomever. And so the fact that he meets Amy Garvey having a very similar debate is not lost on me. It is not lost on me, because it would have even more gotten his attention because of the whole situation with the playmate, the dad, the conversation, and his travels. So she's debating. This question would be debated at the meeting of the East Queen Street Baptist Temperance and Literary Society this evening. And the interest which it appears to evoke among the members of society already is no doubt indicative of a very lively and instructive discussion tonight. The affirmative, that means she has to argue for capital punishment. This is what I'm assuming, right? That it is justifiable. The affirmative of the question will be led by Miss Amy Ashwood, who just joined the league that month. And the negative by Mr. E. Walters. Let's note that. We're going to note that because later on in their relationship, there becomes a little issue around her male company and all this conversation. But if this is the debate that he meets her in, and the conversation is that they meet when he comes back, then she is debating a man on a topic, right? Which would have been a sight at that day, because you're debating a man, early 1900s, you're like 19 in the public. Okay. The other sections of the program, and it goes on. So I wanted to share that because not only did she debate the man, tonight's debate, she debated the man. Later on, there's a conversation that, hold on, let me get it. I'm missing something. Hold on. Okay. This is something later on in September, July, August, September. So it may have been another debate, but I'm going to share it. September. I didn't see after that particular date, but in September, it says here, and if you could look at the top, it says September 14th, 1914. So she's still having conversations. She's still debating. It says here in Saturday's Gleaner, an account of the elocution contest in competition with East Queen Street Baptist Church appeared, in which was the name Mr. A. Ashwood as one of the prize winners. The name should have been Miss Amy Ashwood. So Miss Amy Ashwood is out here winning prizes. She's eloquent. She's debating, right? And this is what catches young Marcus's eye. This is what catches young Marcus's eye. This young woman here, yes, she is there, doing her thing, right? She wasn't sitting in the corner. She wasn't a wallflower. She was opening her mouth and having whatever conversation needed to be had at that time. So I hope that was edifying, right? I hope that was informative. It's more than I knew before this point, right? And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to share as I learn as well. I'm going to come to the comment section. We are almost at 1 hour in. And so the next time we come to this discussion, we are going to see when Marcus meets Amy, when these two, you understand? The UNIA and all of that. Yeah, I think the ministers, I have to, was it capital? No, I think it was corporal. I think you're right. I have to double check. I think it was corporal. I have to go pull that one back up. But it was something about whether, because Marcus kept saying that he didn't want them to whip him. And so, yes, it was whether or not they should have the ability to whip people. I think it's within the school context. I have to double check that one. But it's just interesting that the debate, this one is about capital punishment. And yeah, I think the other one was about corporal punishment. What was the, now I don't forgot the man's name. What was the name? What was the name of the Albert Lightborn? So many names in my mind. All right, I put the link in the box. I think they put him as AF Lightborn. I think the year was way earlier. It was like 1907 there's about. Give me 1 second. I'll double check that. So I'm gonna come to the comment section, and then we'll pick this up on the other side of the discussion. In 1 second. Let me see. It was early on, and his question was, I thought that was it. Hold on. All right, if I can't find his question right now, I will drop it in the box below. I'm gonna click one more article. I think it was 1903, because Garvey was older. Now, I don't see his question right now. I have to go back and look for his question. So with that said, let me come to the comment section. Y'all know I don't like not finding the thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll come back and look for his question. Still looking for his question. All right, Amuna, just leave it alone. Leave it alone. It was similar. It was along the lines. One more. Come on, we got to find the question. Here. Flogging in schools was his question. Yeah. His question was about flogging in schools, and Amy was debating capital punishment. There we go. So thank you for that. Tasha, thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I would just say shout out to everybody who tuned in to the bonus episode of the Judy Moat conversation. And there seems to still be a lot of interest in the conversation. I did say when I had stopped the whole Bob Marley series that there would be bonuses. And this is just one of them. It's not directly Bob, like I said in the video. It is Judy sharing her experience. And I think sometimes it's like the Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 situation, where oftentimes we the people try to discount the supporting cast or act as though their roles in it are not as important as they are. And the reality is, one person couldn't be elevated unless other people came together to allow them to be that. And sometimes when you play that role, you make many sacrifices that no one not only doesn't hear about, but doesn't care, because people want to focus on who's the center, who's the star, right? And everybody plays a part in the conversation. And so that's why I think it was important to highlight her experience, because to be an I3 or to be on the road, she had to sacrifice, right? And it's the same thing we're going to see about Amy Garvey, who the first one, who history ultimately kind of like, she's still around and she's still prominent in certain spaces, but then in other spaces, it's the person who came after who kind of gets, the accolades, let's say. But everybody who contributed deserves their time, right? So with that said, I don't see anyone coming up. This is an open platform. I did get an alert that greetings and welcome, Cynthia. I did get an alert. I don't know if the sister wants me to say her name right now, but if you accidentally get blocked, I don't technically block people. I don't make it a practice unless the person is out of pocket. As you see, I don't run. I put the StreamYard link in there. If you want to come to the conversation, speak respectfully, disagree, agree, that's all cool. So if something happens technically and you just reach out to me, because unless I've warned the person countless times to chill out because they're violating in the comment section, being rude or disrespectful, I don't make it a practice to block people. Right? So if that ever happens inadvertently, on accident, whatever the case may be, just reach out to me and we can rectify the situation. I appreciate everybody, or appreciate love everybody who's tuned in, who shared their thoughts, and who continues to allow this channel to grow and for us to be edified each and every day. So with that said, as Miss Wildberry just said, blessed love. Give thanks, one love. Thanks for tuning in. And we will come back next time. Probably not going to Marcus tomorrow, but we will come back next time and talk about when these two met. All right. So with that said, I did have the links. It was requested to put the links of the books in the comment section. So I did that as well. Mega boogie out. It's been a while since me drop we need rest right now. It's been a while since I dropped the Island Twist, what you call it? Not only commercial, but reading. And you can't see the end of the week, but kind of get like me need a rest and things. So I'm going to go ahead and boogie on out. Everybody have a blessed day. Island Twist follows Jackie Brown, a young girl who finds herself head over heels for the new island boy at school in fresh outer yard, and Jackie has the fever. But as she navigates the ups and downs of her new crush, things quickly spiral out of control when her not-so-secret admirer becomes determined to sabotage her relationship. So check out the new novel, Island Twist, over on Amazon today. Now back to the story. All right, I see Abini saying you don't see the book details under the video. In the comment box. I just updated it before I came live, so it should be there. Under the video in the comment box, it has the videos that I Amy's book. Oh, hush, hush, hush. Let me give you Amy's book right now before I forget. Where did I get Amy's book from now? Hold on one second. I'm gonna tell you right now. The name of the bookstore is. Hold on, because I gotta go back and see where I ordered it from. Hold on. The name of the bookstore is. Come on, what's the name of the bookstore? What you said to me? Oh, African World Press is the name of the bookstore. So let me give the link now. I had to make sure that they had it and it was there. And so they sent it. I ordered it. Actually, it took a little time to reach still. No, not that long, like a week. Because I ordered it on the 2nd of May and it arrived yesterday. So it didn't take that long. Let me give you the link so that you can. It's called African World Press Books because the majority of the people do not have it. So let me give you the link right now. And then I'll update the section as well. It's the book C tier. So that's for those who want the Amy book. As you know, it gives a lot of information. It gives references. This is the book I was looking for because it goes beyond her life with Marcus Garvey and her activism thereafter. So I'm going to update it and put that in the description as well, so that you can check out that book. I mean, I'm reading Garvey and Garveyism, but I could already done see that Amy #2 have a heavy slant. I mean, heavy. I'm going to read it nonetheless. But I can see she really leaning. You understand me? I say, yeah, she lean. But hey, we just have to read with understanding. So that's that. If anybody has any other questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And I pray that everybody has a blessed day. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.